Good afternoon, guys. It's Simeon from LettingHQ. Today I'll be taking you through LettingCheck and showing you how to do an inventory from the check-in through to a midterm inspection, all the way through to the very end of a tenancy, and of course having to do a checkouts report. Okay, I'll start casting to this screen. I'll be speaking for roughly 10 minutes, at the end of which I'll be giving away a coupon code which will give you 50% off for the first 2 months that you use LettingHQ, so stick around for that. Like I said, I'll just be going over the main pages at first, and then we'll jump into the actual process of doing an inventory. Okay, so the first screen that I've gone to is app.lettinghq.com, and that's going to take you to this screen. All we need to do is log in, and we're taken to the dashboard. Now on the dashboard, these are all the products that you would use under LettingHQ. On the left, we have LettingCheck, which is an inventory tool for letting agents, landlords, and inventory clerks. On the right, we have LettingFix. LettingFix is our repair reporting solution. Basically makes it a lot easier for tenants to report repairs and for you to manage them as well. Also, if you want to be extra sure that your tenants are exactly who they say they are, we'll soon be launching Tenancy Check, tenant referencing software. So if any of that has sparked some interest, you can be sure to drop me an email, simeon@lettinghq.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, let's jump right into it and log into LettingCheck. Okay, so straight away we're logged in. We don't need to mess around with putting our details in again. As long as we're logged into LettingHQ, we're logged into all the apps. Now this is the main screen that you'll be on LettingCheck. You'll come to this if you click LettingCheck or Inventories. And this is basically a list of all your reports in chronological order. We have the option to edit on the right and to add a new inventory on the left. If we head over to Properties, it's much the same. We simply have the option to view, edit, add a property photo, or delete on the right, and to add a new property on the left. If we head over to landlords, we have a few more basic details. So the email and their address and telephone number. Same is the case with tenants. If we head over to templates, now design templates are basically a company's branding. So if you were an inventory clerk and you did multiple inventories for different companies, instead of having to do any post editing, you could simply select the company's branding on a new inventory, and their company logo and colors would be on the PDF. So you don't need to mess around with any post editing. It's just automatically done for you. Okay, let's head back over to inventories and let's start a report from scratch. So we'll select add inventory on the top left. Now the property I'm going to select is 13 Greywater Lane. The inventory type, we'll say it's a check-in. Right now we're going to ignore inventory templates, but as I was saying a couple of minutes ago, we're going to select Accents Homes for design templates. It's important not to get confused between these. I know that they sound the same, but they're very different. Okay, let's save the inventory. And we're instantly taken into it. And this is basically a blank slate on which we can add our rooms and items. It's pretty simple. Again, we're looking at the top left in this grey box, and we'll select add an entry. The first room I'll add is a bathroom, and the first item will be a bath. Now you'll notice we don't allow any typing in of items or rooms, and this is purely for consistency throughout the inventory. Throughout the inventory. Oftentimes people use different expressions to convey the same item. So for instance, what I might call a table, you might call a work surface. So it just helps avoid things like that. Okay, let's say it's in perfect condition, meaning there's no damage, making the damage type not applicable. Now we've also got the option to add some fixtures and fittings. Now we can go into as much detail as we want here. Obviously, the more expensive the deposit, then the more likely we are to go into much more detail. Let's say it's something like a £300 deposit. We don't really want to be spending hours and hours of time, which we end up paying to do the inventory. But let's say it's something more like £3,000, then we can definitely afford to spend much more time writing the inventory in much more detail. Okay, once we're happy that's done, we can save the item. And it's, like I said, it's added underneath the bathroom. Okay, to add a photo, we're looking at this green box on the right, and we'll select Add Photo. Now, obviously, if you were doing an inventory, you'd be using this on your phone or tablet, and by clicking that, it would take you to your camera roll or your library. But as I'm using this on my desktop, it's taking me to my documents. Okay, once we see the tick, we know that it's uploaded, so we can click Close. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to add a new entry, and I'm going to select the same room. Now, instead of having to scroll through this long list of rooms, which would be very repetitive if it was a long inventory, I can simply select from my existing rooms at the very top. So I added a bathroom. I'm just going to click that. This time I'm going to add a sink. And instead of perfect condition, I think we'll say this one's in poor. And we'll say it's very damaged. Now, I know I was saying earlier about the lack of being able to type things in, but if there is something that you need to put in there which you can't describe in the drop-down menus, then you can add item notes. So there's always that option. We'll say the damage type is cracked. And once again, we can add just a few fixtures and fittings. We won't add as many this time. Okay, let's save the item. And once again, we're going to add a photo. Before I do that, I'll just point out that instead of an item that's in poor condition being green, it will show up in red, which just makes it a lot easier on the eye. You can see what's broken just by the color scheme. Okay, let's add a photo. Once again, this is just taking me to my documents because I'm using this on my desktop. But like I said, if you're using this on your phone or tablet, which is obviously going to be the case, then this is going to take you to your camera roll or your library. Okay, once the photo's loaded, I'll take you through the process of templates. Okay, and for this, I'm going to start an inventory from scratch, and I'm going to add a new inventory. We'll do it for the same property. We'll again do it for a check-in report, but this time I'm going to select a 2-bedroom bungalow. And we'll also assign the same design templates for accent homes. Let's save the inventory. And what this basically does is it adds all the rooms and items commonly found within a 2-bedroom bungalow. So for instance, it's added the bathroom, a bedroom, another bedroom, a dining room, a hallway, a kitchen, a living room, and a front and back garden. So it's just saved us from doing all that work. Not only that, it's also added the items commonly found within those rooms. So for example, in the bathroom at the very top, it's added a bath, a toilet, and in every single room, it's added the floors, walls, and ceilings. So just items that are obviously already there, but that would take us a little bit of time to add ourselves. So it's just taking the hard work out for us. Obviously, all we'd have to do now is add the items that were maybe not included in the template, and change the conditions if necessary, and also add the images as well. If there is a property type that isn't on our list, then you can certainly add your own. It would simply be a case of adding a new entry, selecting the room you needed, and then clicking Create Template from Inventory. And then you could use that template as many times as you needed. Okay, so like I said, now it would just be a case of changing the conditions if necessary and adding the images as well. Okay, so let's say that the tenant's lived in the property for 6 months now, and we want to do a midterm inspection. Now again, we could start a report from scratch, or we could even use a template, and that would certainly save us a lot of time. But I'm going to take advantage of duplication. Now what duplication does is it basically makes an exact copy of the reports that I'm on now. So if we go ahead and duplicate the inventory, we've got some options now. So obviously I'm going to change the report type from a check-in to an interim. And I've also got the option to duplicate the entries, the variation options, the photos, and the keys. For me, these options work, so I'll click duplicate. Once again, this just makes an exact copy of the report that we were just on. And it also takes us into it, so we don't have to mess around going between screens. So we can see it's exactly the same. Again, all we'd have to do is make the relevant changes to the conditions, as well as add new images as well. This would also be a good opportunity to say about meter readings and keys. If you want to add meter readings, you can certainly do that within LettingCheck. You simply select the meter type and enter the data. The same is the case with keys. Obviously a little bit different. You'd have to select the key type for which door it was for, and then add the quantity of keys as well. So it just keeps track of who's got keys to the property, which is quite important. Okay, so let's say that another 6 months has passed and the tenant wants to move out. So that of course means we'll have to do a checkouts report. And this can be done in exactly the same way as before. We'll simply duplicate the inventory and change the report type to a checkout. This time I'll duplicate the entries but not the variation options. I'll duplicate the photos and not the keys. Okay, let's hit duplicate, and this is just going to copy all the work that we've just done into the checkout report. Okay, that's simple enough. So of course, at any stage, whichever inventory you need, you can head back over to inventories and generate a PDF of whichever report you needed. So we can see these are in order now: the check-in, the interim, and the checkout. So if we needed a PDF for the check-in, we'd obviously click the green box on the left. The one that I want is for the checkout, so I'm going to click this green one on the left, and that will take us to this screen. Now again, the company branding that I mentioned earlier, this is where it comes into play. Obviously I've got the company logo at the very top, and I didn't have to mess around adding it later. It's just simply there. We've also got the location of the property as well as the property photo. Let's scroll a bit further down now. We've also got the table of contents, the terms and conditions, the property photos. I mentioned earlier about the meter readings and the keys, so they're listed here. And we've eventually come to the inventory items. Once again, you'll notice if something's in green, that just means it's in perfect or good condition, whilst in red, that's poor or bad condition. We've got the photos listed on the right and the items, and if we'd added any fixtures and fittings, they would appear below the item as well. So I think there's some examples of this here with the window. They're just listed below in bullet points. I won't dwell too long on this because I think it's quite obvious the layout of the actual inventory. But there's some very interesting stuff at the bottom. So if we scroll a bit faster now, we're eventually going to come to the inventory photos. Now, you'll notice that these are numbered, so the window is numbered 6.11. So if we scroll to the inventory photos, and we find 6.11, which is here, we see that the image that was on the window is here as well. So it just makes it a lot easier for referencing. Let's scroll a bit faster, and we're eventually going to come to comparison reports. Now what these do is basically track all the changes that go on during a tenancy. So for example, with the meter readings, the gas reading at the check-in was 1,000, and at the checkout, it's 3,000. The best examples of comparison reports are with the items within rooms. So for instance, in the bathroom, we see the items listed below are things that have deteriorated. For example, the toilet was in perfect condition, and now it's deteriorated and it's in poor condition because it's chipped. You can see some more examples of this with the door, the window. Obviously, always throughout this report, the items are going to be listed underneath the room that they're in. The last example of this is with the lawn. So at the check-in, it was in perfect condition, and now it's in poor condition. So at the very bottom of the inventory, we've got our repair history, and this is something you'd have if you're using our repair reporting software, LettingFix. And what this basically does is it adds all the repairs that have gone on during a tenancy. So we can see that in the bathroom, the basin on a pedestal was broken at some point. We've got the date there that it was broken. We've also got the pictures from before and after. So it just saves us from changing in between apps and looking at different things. Fortunately, if you're using LettingHQ, all of our products share data really smoothly. And this is a great example of it with the repair history. So we can see some more examples. The table was broken at some point, as well as the lamp. Again, the color scheme is much the same. If something's in green, it signifies that it's been resolved. Whilst in red, that means it's still an outstanding issue. And obviously at the very bottom of the report, we have the tenant agreement. Okay, I hope all that made sense. This is recorded, so you will be able to watch it again. It'd simply be a case of following the link I just sent you in the email and just starting it from the beginning. Okay, thanks for listening, guys. If you do have any questions, be sure to drop me an email, simeon@lettinghq.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon.